Welcome to Master Your Mistakes. Today we have Peggy Klaus. Peggy is one of the most sought after executive coaches, coaching Fortune 500 CEOs and board chairs, and is also the author of 2 books, Bragg, The Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It, and The Hard Truth About Soft Skills. Her work has been published in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fortune magazine, and the Harvard Business Review. Peggy, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you, Jesse. Thank you for having me on.
Cool. Most welcome. Good to have you. So, Peggy, what is the number one mistake or mistakes in your career that you'd like to speak about today?
Well, that's like asking who your favorite child is, if I had a child. But it's a real hard one just because I could give you a catalog of mistakes. But I think the one that is most prescient right now is that for years, I resisted fully engaging in social media. I dabbled, I post on LinkedIn, I have a Facebook page, which by the way, I really never look at. But truthfully, I dismissed the whole phenomenon because I thought social media dumbed things down that my work couldn't possibly fit into a 60-second soundbite. So I was smug and I was dismissive, and I really did take perverse pride in ignoring advice to stop being such a prig and get with the online program. So finally, after years, I have gotten with the program, and I am, I will be really fully online in social media.
And how do you find that transition? Because given in your career, you've given talks to a lot of people, you've spoken in a lot of high stakes situations. How do the skills that you build there cross over to doing it on camera and putting yourself out there in that sort of sense?
Well, I have been a performer for many, many years. So I started my career in the entertainment business. I was trained in London as an actor and as a classical singer. And then when I got back to the States, Jesse, I produced and directed for television and theater and coached lots of performers in, for talk show hosting and newscasts and really anyone who had to perform and present. And so that led me into working on Wall Street with a lot of those people that you mentioned, and in a variety of different industries, on how to get what's unique and special about them across to their audiences, whether it be in boardrooms, whether it be at IPO, really anything, media. So I've always loved the in-person, and when we went into COVID, it was really hard for me to get with this virtual program. And, I really dug my heels in. And then I said, well, we've got not a lot of options here, so I better truly get virtual. And right now, I feel really great about going into this social media thing with a new YouTube channel, and I'll be on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. And I can't believe I'm as excited as I am.
That's cool. That's cool. And I'd really be keen to dive into your coaching and what are the sorts of problems that you help a Fortune 500 CEO with, or someone presenting to a board. What sort of problems do you help them tackle, or skills that you help them build?
Great question. Well, first of all, I have to say that I work with really accomplished, brilliant professionals. And my job is to help them elevate their leadership and their communication so that they can enhance their impact so that it matches with their expertise. So often, and that's what my second book is about, soft skills. When I wrote the book in 2008, if I can remember, people would say to me, "Oh, Peggy, you teach the soft skills. They're the really easy ones." And I said, that's really interesting. I find them to be the hardest ones that professionals need, because you can have all the technical expertise, but if you don't know how to communicate, to care for, to empathize, you will not succeed. It's no longer about just the hard skills. So I help my, CEOs, my senior managers, and people actually all the way, down in the organizations to elevate their soft skills. And, whether it be executive presence or whether it be around confidence or courage or self-promotion, or a lot of my work is with women leaders and helping them to really navigate the narrow band of acceptable behavior and communication.
How would you that's an interesting area, would be like, what are the problems that are unique or particularly pronounced that women face versus men when it comes to this sort of area?
Jesse, how long do you have?
No, yeah.
I've been doing this work for about 25 years. Well, and I've seen it go through this incredible spectrum, of women who were just starting when I started in like the early to mid 90s, just starting to get some traction in the workplace. But because of societal and cultural and religious and familial constrictions, they were not able to rise in organizations as quickly or as high as most, I'll say, white men. So we had to work on, giving them the confidence and the gravitas and the executive presence, and teaching them how to manage being a woman in a white male, and I'll say corporate world, although I worked in government and nonprofits and academia. So how do we, get them with all of these cultural norms that really tell them, you should be in the home, you should be subservient, you shouldn't talk about yourself and your values. I mean, there's so many bragging myths. So that's what I started to work on with them. And I was saying to another interviewer the other day that, I've been doing this, Jesse, for so long, and so many of the issues are still there.
And on the idea of, if there's like a kind of specific cultural way that something happens, particularly in, let's say corporate America, or corporate London as well, how would you approach someone who, wants to be effective in that world, but they also kind of want to retain some sense of authenticity, that the way that they speak and act feels true to them? How do they kind of get that balance between, kind of content and style, as it were, in some degree?
Oh, that's such a great conversation piece. So let's take the word authentic. I mean, we could spend hours on this. Authentic is thrown around a lot. And I think it's a word that we use much too easily. When someone says to me, Peggy, I just want to be authentic. And I said, well, describe to me what you mean by authentic. And usually there's a lot of fumphing around about it, Jesse. They don't know how to define it. And I say, finally it comes down to, they get very frustrated and they said, well, I just am who I am. So I said, oh, well, that's like Popeye's definition. I am who I am. But what is that? And I would venture to say that there is a core to all of us, our values, our morals, our personality, but that shifts depending on the situation and the audience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that when people use the word authentic, they don't take into account. So I think I'm very much who I am as I talk to you. I'm, excited and I'm animated and, sometimes humorous and snarky and whatever. But I might just change a bit of that if I am in front of a different audience. Mm-hmm. I might be, let's say I was to meet your king.
Oh, yeah.
I might be a little bit more deferential, a little quieter, maybe not so direct. I don't know. But do you see what I mean? How dicey that is to talk about authenticity. So when I work with people, I ask them, what do they mean by being their authentic self? And I frame it in terms of, how do you come across when you are with people, family and friends and colleagues who you feel really at home with, who you're very comfortable with? What comes out? How do you communicate? Are you humorous and direct and conversational and give great eye contact and have great vocal volume and empathic and, all those things that come out when you are really comfortable. And so let's try and bring those to every stage that you're on.
That makes sense. Are there any times that you've personally felt that upon reflection, you felt that you kind of, you hadn't been quite as authentic as you wanted, and then reflecting on the, the social interaction, the business interaction, maybe the coaching interaction, you reflected, actually, I felt I wasn't quite as authentic as I wanted to be. Or maybe the opposite, that you were maybe too authentic and actually you needed a bit more tact in that situation.
From the very beginning of when I started to coach, I made 2 tenets for my working with people. The first one is, I don't work with anybody I don't like, and who I don't think is doing something. And this is very judgmental, but doing something that will better the world. And the second one is that I don't work with anybody who's not working as hard, if not harder than I am, because this is really hard work. And I don't want to be dragging someone along. And so, despite ups and downs in my my calendar people of, when things have been financially a little bit adrift, I have always held to those. And I think all of the people that I've spoken to and all the people that I've worked with, I have been really, quote, my authentic self. I don't know if we can curse on this program.
Yeah, of course it
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Fabulous. I mean, you know, I'm not going to bullshit you.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. So, just let's have it out. When I have very difficult feedback to give to a client, I will, of course, think about the best way to communicate it, knowing who they are, the best way that they take in feedback. But I am honest with them. And I think the combo platter for me is that they know that I just want the best for them, that I am really supportive of them, Jesse. I can't do their work. I don't want their job. I couldn't do their job. So I just want them to succeed. And I think them knowing that, they can take a lot of the hard stuff that I have to deal out, because sometimes it's really hard.
Interesting. And are there any, when you're kind of delivering that sort of feedback or suggestions for improvement, do you have any particular phrases or words that you like try to use to make it like land effectively, or does it really come down to the like individual person, the conversation naturally flows?
I think what you're asking, are there some stock phrases?
Yeah, I am. You know what? I am essentially asking, if a listener is listening to you now thinking like, what's an expression that they could potentially experiment with in a scenario where they have to deliver some tough feedback?
Yeah. Well, one that comes to mind, and again, as you say, it really depends on the person and the relationship that we have, So, I had a wonderful client for many years who, because of his background, it was very difficult for him to get negative feedback. But, working with him, and we just got to laugh about it. And I'd say, I know you're not going to want to hear this, but I got to tell you. And then, I could say it, or I'd say, buckle in, because I've got some big feedback for you that you probably don't want to know,
Gotcha.
Or, I'll say, if I'm being more circumspect, I'll say, I've got some feedback for you. And I think it's going to be, difficult for you to hear. But I know from the work that we've been doing and the progress you've made that you will really appreciate it, so that you can move on. So some things like that.
Nice. That makes sense. And a potentially challenging question would be, do you remember a piece of feedback that someone has given you that when it landed with you initially, caused an emotional spike and you were like, oh, like really frustrating. But then ultimately you thought, actually, this is pretty good advice that I have to, take on board.
Yes, but I'm going to switch fields right now and tell you that it happened to me when I was a theater director. And actually, it happened to me when I was directing in London. And I was directing a play, and I had a young actress. And at the end of the rehearsal, she said to me, "Just tell me what to do." And I said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're creative. You're the actress. And she burst into tears and she said, "You're a terrible director. All of my other directors have told me what to do and you won't tell me what to do. And I'm going to fail." And she's sobbing.
Mm.
And I was much younger at the time. So I really took this to heart. Like, I should help her. I should do anything to get her out of her misery. And I said, "Sweetie, if I show you or tell you what to do, it would be me doing it. It wouldn't be you. I've offered some suggestions, but this is yours. This is your role to make." And she stormed out of the room. And I went back to my home in Clapham. I didn't sleep the entire night.
Mm.
I came in to the rehearsal studio, and she comes bursting through the door, giving me a huge hug. She says, "I think I've got it. I've got it, Peggy." We did the rehearsal, and she was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was really hard to hear, "You're a terrible director. You're not helping me."
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, contrasting, the kind of theatrical world with, the corporate world, how do you see these kind of two different groups of personalities? Do you think, like maybe some of the stereotypes would hold true? The kind of stereotype being theatrical world, larger than life, very expressive, maybe quite volatile. Corporate world would be a bit more colder, stern, less empathetic, maybe still volatile, but with a different set of emotions. Do you think that holds true?
Spot on about the volatility.
Mm.
Well, as you rise through the ranks, the ego can get bigger.
Rises with you. Yeah.
Right? And it can expand like mainland China. And so keeping that in check is really important. And I've worked with a lot of stars in the theatrical field. And the same thing can happen. What's so interesting, though, is that when you scratch the surface, Jesse, it's really a lot of fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough or smart enough. And so what you want to do is boost their real confidence and boost their skills and allow them to take risks and be confident without that oversized bravado.
Makes sense. And that applies to essentially both worlds in their own kind of unique way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I have the same or see the same fear with corporate people, no matter how successful they are, when they have to present in front of a board or they're going public or they're giving a town hall. I mean, I've had CEOs of companies say to me, "Peggy, put me in an arena of 10,000 and I am fine because the lights obliterate everybody out there. I can't see anybody. I walk on, I walk off, and I'm done. Don't put me in a room of 10 people where everybody is staring at me. I mean, I had one CEO who said, when I walk into a room, I count the chairs. If there's 10 or fewer chairs, I'm fine. The 11th chair freaks me out.
Interesting. So in those kind of two different scenarios, the person that hates the small audience and the person that, you know, freaks out at the larger audience, what kind of steps would someone take to get through that? Is it immersion therapy? Do they just have to repeatedly take the heat, or is there something else they should work on? Is it more kind of emotional, back to that kind of confidence piece that you mentioned?
You know, it's confidence and it's preparation. And one of the things that I've found that professionals don't do nearly enough is practice and prepare. That lots of things take over. Fear takes over. Procrastination. They'd rather not think about it, or they think that, look, I'm an expert in my field. I know this. I can get up in front of a conference and just, talk. In other words, they wing it. And 80% of the time, when they haven't prepared in the way that they need to, they will fail to impact their audience. 20% of the time, when they wing it, they will succeed. And damn it, if it's not what keeps them winging it, because, that's just enough of a reinforcer to continue the behavior. And, but it's like playing Russian roulette. You never know. You go up and you fail. And I've gotten a lot of people into my studio because finally the winging it did not cut it.
Interesting.
So, with the CEO who freaked out about the 11th chair, but who did fine on the big arena, a lot of it was he didn't know how he came across, and he really never prepared, because he came into the CEO role without having a lot of practice. Yeah, somehow he was able to get away with not giving a lot of presentations and such.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about, your studio versus your books. In your studio, when you see someone, you're seeing them one-to-one, you're able to develop that relationship, you're able to kind of like diagnose what areas need the biggest kind of focus. Versus your books, you're writing for the masses, you have to kind of distill complexity into something memorable. How do you begin to do that? And what are some of the, without putting you on the spot, the distilled pieces of gold that you would love to share most?
Well, Jesse, with Bragg, it came up so organically. I was sitting on a plane from New York to San Francisco. My seatmate and I were chatting for 20 minutes about what we had done in New York and whatever. And when I asked him finally, well, what do you do? All of a sudden, he clammed up. And he answered in a monotone, in monosyllables, what he did. And finally, after the fourth question that I asked him, and it was like pulling teeth, and I reached down and got my computer, and I turned to him and I said, it's been lovely to talk to you. I've got some work to do. I'll see you in San Francisco. And all of a sudden my brain started going, and I said, oh my gosh, this guy couldn't tell me what he did or who he worked for in an interesting and entertaining way. He couldn't brag about himself in a good way. And God knows he really missed, an opportunity here and perhaps so many other places because it was so dull and boring. So that's what really catapulted the Bragg book. And with the soft skills book, it was, oh gosh, I guess by that time, I'd been working as an executive coach and a speaker and trainer for 15 years. And so I got to see all of the kind of sticky wickets that business professionals had. And so I wrote about soft skills. And in terms of some little tidbits for you, I guess we're talking, really in general, soft skills, know yourself. Really know yourself. Be willing to hold the mirror up and really look at yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can ask friends and families and colleagues, your boss, for feedback, and truly listen to what they tell you. Don't just jump in after the first piece of feedback and deflect it or reject it. It's important to listen to it, write it down so you remember, reflect on it, discern where they are correct, and also where it doesn't ring true. I remember this in graduate school. In acting, we would get critiqued all the time by our professors. And I remember coaching people then because, we would get some harsh feedback. And I would say, well, first of all, sit with it and then see what parts really are true, even though it may be painful. And have pardon my expression, the balls, the nerve to go back and have a deeper conversation about it. Stay curious. What did you mean by that? Can you be more specific? One of the things that most managers and leaders are terrible at is giving specific feedback. Very general, right? Because it's hard to give difficult feedback. But you have to do it as a leader. So if the person hasn't given you specificity, then you need to go back and say, you said this, and I'm really curious. Tell me how that appears. What do I do that makes you say that? And do you have any suggestions for turning that behavior around?
I really like that question. How does that appear? Because that's quite a useful way to really get it into the real world and describe a scenario of how it happens. And it's probably better than when sometimes people ask for an example and then it's hard to come up with an example off the top of your head. Whereas how does it appear? Kind of, I think instinctively hearing it gives them a chance to kind of, loosely describe a scenario. Then as they describe more and more, it gets more and more specific. So that's cool. I really like it. I like that.
And, it also opens up the possibility, Jesse, for people to say, if I gave you the feedback, Jesse, in meetings, you don't look very interested and you appear aloof. Well, that's very general. If I describe to you, rather, the behavior, Jesse, when you're in our meetings, you don't participate in the discussions. You don't ask questions. You don't comment. You don't give your opinion. You don't push back. And, you're on your phone scrolling. You are writing emails. You are looking out the window. That gives you specific behavior. Then what I'm talking about and how you can turn it around.
That's cool. And now thinking about feedback in a slightly different way, if you think about yourself, maybe when you were just exiting university, what is the advice that your current self would give yourself back then? And it can be career focused, it can be life focused. It's really, really, what kind of comes to mind?
I should get on the couch for this one, Jesse. Um, wow. Um, I've always gone on instinct and very much in my heart. Fortunately, I've never done anything in my career that I haven't been excited about or wanted to do. But I would say that while that is a kind of good way to navigate, I would also give my younger self the advice to really reflect more, to make what I call a plus delta. Pluses are the things that you do really well, so you can strengthen them. And the deltas are the things you're not so good at, and you shouldn't, do those things, or personality traits. And I would make a really rigorous plus delta and look at my skills, look at my talents, look at my personality and my communication and leadership skills, and be more focused. I always laugh when, young associates tell me, oh, I'm going to be, financial advisor. And by the time I'm 30, I'm going to make $1 gazillion. And then I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I just say, well, let me know how that turns out. Because I was never like that. I was never that scripted. Mm-hmm. But I think if I'm really honest and reflective, that I would say I could have used a little bit more scripting.
Interesting. That's really honest reflection. I really like that. And the final question would be, thinking about yourself in 10 years' time, what do you think your future self, what advice do you think your future self would give your current self now?
It's the advice, Jesse, I give myself pretty much every day, which is to continue to be curious, to learn, to expand, not to get stuck, which is something I tell my clients all the time. We've got to take you from stuck to successful. And, a friend of mine about 1.5 years ago, when I started creating Unstoppable Confidence, my course, I said to her, my God, so many of my friends are retiring, and what am I doing? And I'm expanding. And she said, Peg, go big or go home. And I decided to go big because I really feel that I want this work to be out there. I want to keep meeting people and learning new things and being challenged. So that's the advice.
Cool.
Now,
I love that.
For 10 years.
Be curious and go big or go home. I love that. That's so good. That's so good. Peggy, I really appreciate your time. There's so many golden nuggets of wisdom, both broad and distilled. Really, really appreciate it. Good to have you on.
Well, it's been delightful, Jesse. Thank you.